Overheard my wife telling her friend she regrets settling for me, but later karma hit her hard. Alright, so I guess I should start with some context. I'm a 26-year-old guy, and my wife Emma is 24. We've been together for a few years, married for just 3 months. Things have been, well, pretty normal. At least that's what I thought. We'd have the usual ups and downs, but nothing major. Honestly, I thought we were doing fine. Anyway, the other night, something happened that completely flipped my world upside down. I wasn't snooping or anything, but I overheard Emma on the phone while I was passing by our bedroom. I didn't even mean to listen in, but sometimes you catch bits and pieces of conversations, right? Well, this was one of those times, and what I heard has been messing with my head ever since. So, Emma's talking to one of her best friends. I'm not sure who it was, but it sounded like one of those deep, serious talks. You know, the kind where you can tell someone's venting about life. I was about to keep walking, but then I heard my name. That made me pause for a second because, well, who wouldn't? Hearing your name in a private conversation sparks curiosity, even if you don't want it to. Emma says, "Don't settle for just anyone. That's the mistake I made with Michael." My heart stopped. I felt like I got punched in the gut. She went on, "He was my last resort, and now look where it's gotten me." I just stood there, frozen. I couldn't believe what I'd just heard. My wife, the woman I thought was happy with me, saying I was her last resort. I couldn't even process it right away. I felt like my brain was short-circuiting. Like, how do you even react to something like that? My first instinct was to barge in and demand an explanation, but I didn't. I don't know why. Maybe I was too shocked, or maybe I didn't want to hear more. Either way, I just walked away. The rest of the night, I couldn't think about anything else. I tried to act normal around Emma, but it was impossible. Every time I looked at her, I heard those words again in my head. Last resort. It's like they were burned into my brain. I kept asking myself, how long has she felt this way? Has she always thought of me like this? Was I blind this whole time? I didn't sleep that night. I just lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying that conversation over and over. Part of me wanted to believe there was some kind of misunderstanding, that maybe I didn't hear her right. But deep down, I knew what I heard, and there was no twisting it into something else. The thing is, I never saw any signs of this before. Emma always seemed happy, or at least content. Sure, we had our occasional arguments, but who doesn't? There was nothing that made me think she felt trapped or like she had settled for me. It's not like she was forced into this marriage. We were together for a good while before tying the knot. We talked about our future, our goals, even kids someday. None of it ever felt fake or forced. At least, not to me. As I lay there that night, my mind started spiraling. What if she's always felt this way and just never said anything? What if every moment we shared, every "I love you," was just her going through the motions? I felt like a complete idiot, thinking back to all the times I thought we were happy, wondering if it was all just an act on her part. And then another thought hit me. What if there's someone else? I mean, she mentioned settling for me, right? Who's to say there wasn't someone before me that she really wanted to be with? Someone she still thinks about? That thought made my stomach churn. I didn't want to go down that rabbit hole, but once the idea was in my head, it wouldn't leave. By morning, I was exhausted, both physically and emotionally. Emma woke up, looking as cheerful as ever, like nothing had happened. I tried to play it cool, but inside, I was a mess. I couldn't bring myself to confront her right away. I needed more time to figure out what to say and how to say it. But every second I spent not talking about it felt like I was suffocating. Throughout the day, I kept catching myself watching her, analyzing her every move. Was she texting someone else? Did she seem distant? Was she hiding something? Honestly, I felt paranoid, like I was losing my mind. But how could I not? Hearing your partner say you were their last choice messes with you in ways you don't expect. I even thought about talking to one of my friends about it, but I felt too embarrassed. What would I even say? "Hey, I overheard my wife say I was her last resort. What should I do?" It sounds ridiculous, like something out of a bad drama. Plus, I didn't want to paint Emma in a bad light to my friends if this turned out to be something we could work through. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized I couldn't just brush this under the rug. This was too big to ignore. As the day went on, my anxiety kept building. I knew I had to talk to her, but I couldn't shake the fear of what I might hear. What if she confirmed everything? What if she admitted she didn't really love me? Or worse, what if she just shrugged it off like it didn't matter? The thought of confronting her made my heart race, but I knew avoiding it wouldn't make it go away. By the time evening rolled around, I made up my mind. I had to bring it up, no matter how hard it was. I couldn't live with this gnawing at me. So after dinner, I casually said, "Hey, we should talk later." She looked at me, a bit surprised, but just nodded. Little did she know that conversation would change everything. After overhearing Emma say I was her last resort, my mind was racing. I couldn't shake the words, no matter how much I tried to convince myself that maybe it wasn't as bad as it sounded. The next day, everything felt different. I started noticing little things I hadn't really paid attention to before, or maybe I just didn't want to see them. Emma was acting off. I mean, she still smiled, she still said all the right things, but there was something about the way she carried herself, like she was trying a bit too hard to act normal. Or maybe I was just imagining it because of what I heard. Either way, the tension was there, even if neither of us said anything about it. That morning, as we were having breakfast, I couldn't help but steal glances at her. She was scrolling through her phone like she usually does, but every now and then, I'd catch her typing quickly, then deleting and retyping. I don't know why, but it made me feel uneasy. I asked her casually, "Who are you texting?" She looked up almost startled, like she didn't expect me to notice. "Oh, just a friend," she said, her voice a little too casual. "You don't know her." And then she went right back to her phone. That wasn't unusual, but now everything felt suspicious. I didn't press her though. I just nodded and pretended like it didn't bother me. But it did. Throughout the day, I kept replaying her words from the night before. Was she texting the same friend she was talking to on the phone? Or was it someone else? My mind was coming up with 1,000 scenarios, none of them good. I kept thinking, what if she's hiding something? What if there's more to this than just her feeling like she settled for me? Later that afternoon, I caught her again on her phone. This time, she was smiling at the screen. It wasn't the kind of smile you give when you're texting a friend about something funny. It was more intimate. I couldn't help but ask, "What's so funny?" She looked up, quickly locking her phone. "Oh, nothing," she said, brushing it off. "Just a meme." But there was something about the way she said it, like she was trying to keep me from digging any deeper. That's when the doubt really started creeping in. Was there someone else? Was she still talking to an ex or someone from her past? I didn't want to be that guy, the paranoid husband who questions every little thing, but after what I heard, I couldn't help it. Every little action felt like a clue to a bigger secret. The weirdest part was how normal she was acting otherwise, like nothing had changed. We still went about our day, running errands, making dinner, watching TV together, but there was this unspoken tension between us. At least I felt it. I don't know if she did or if she was just that good at pretending. At one point, we were sitting on the couch watching some random show, and she leaned over, resting her head on my shoulder. It felt nice, but it also felt wrong. Like, how could she be so affectionate after what she said? Did she even mean it? Or was this her way of pretending everything was fine? I wanted to say something, to bring it up right then and there, but I couldn't find the right words. What if I was blowing this out of proportion? What if I misunderstood her conversation? But no matter how much I tried to rationalize it, I kept going back to that one sentence. Michael was my last resort. It wasn't just about the words, it was about the way she said them. There was no hesitation, no hint of a joke. It sounded like something she genuinely believed. And that's what hurt the most. By the end of the day, I was mentally exhausted. I couldn't keep living like this, second-guessing everything she said and did. I knew I had to confront her, but I needed to find the right moment. The problem was, every time I thought about bringing it up, I felt this knot in my stomach. What if the conversation went worse than I expected? What if she confirmed all my worst fears? As we got ready for bed, Emma seemed completely oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. She kissed me goodnight and rolled over, falling asleep almost instantly. Meanwhile, I was lying there, wide awake, my mind racing with a million thoughts. I started thinking back to all the moments in our relationship where I might have missed signs. Were there times when she seemed distant, but I brushed it off as her having a bad day? Were there moments when she hinted at being unhappy, but I was too blind to see it? And then there was the nagging thought. What if she was comparing me to someone else? Someone she thought was better? The idea of being someone's backup plan, the person they settled for because they couldn't have what they really wanted, made me feel sick. I stared at the ceiling for what felt like hours, trying to figure out my next move. I couldn't keep living with this doubt, but I also couldn't just blurt it out in the middle of the night. I needed to find the right time and the right words. But more importantly, I needed to be ready for whatever she was going to say. Because deep down, I knew that once I opened that door, there was no going back. All right, so after a few days of feeling like my head was about to explode from all the overthinking, I finally decided I couldn't take it anymore. I had to talk to Emma. I mean, how do you just sit on something like that? Knowing your wife sees you as a last resort? It was eating me alive, and I knew if I didn't bring it up, I'd probably go insane. That morning, we were both home. I tried to keep things as normal as possible, even though I felt like my heart was racing out of my chest. We had breakfast together, but I couldn't taste a damn thing. I just kept staring at her, trying to figure out how to start the conversation. Every time I opened my mouth to say something, I'd chicken out. Finally, I couldn't hold it in anymore. After we finished eating, I took a deep breath and said, "Hey Emma, we need to talk." She looked up from her phone, a little surprised, but didn't say anything. I motioned for us to sit in the living room. We sat down on the couch, and the tension in the air was so thick you could probably cut it with a knife. Emma looked at me, her face a mix of curiosity and concern. I could tell she was trying to figure out what was coming. "Okay," I started, trying to keep my voice steady. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." She nodded, still quiet. I took another deep breath, and then just went for it. "A few nights ago, I overheard you on the phone with your friend. You said something about settling for me, and that I was your last resort." Her eyes widened, and for a moment, she didn't say anything. It was like time had frozen, and I was just sitting there, waiting for the world's worst news to drop. Finally, she let out a nervous laugh, the kind you do when you're caught off guard. "Wait, you heard that?" she asked, her voice shaky. "Yeah," I said, trying to keep my cool. "I heard everything." She looked down at her hands, fiddling with her fingers. "Michael, I didn't mean it like that. I was just talking with my friend. It was a stupid thing to say." "Stupid?" I repeated, feeling the frustration building up. "Emma, you said I was your last resort. That's not just stupid, that's crushing." She sighed, rubbing her temples like she was trying to think of the right words. "I was venting, okay? It wasn't serious. Sometimes you just say things in the heat of the moment, and they don't mean anything." "Don't mean anything?" I shot back. "Emma, those words don't come out of nowhere. You don't just casually tell someone you settled for your husband unless there's some truth behind it." She looked at me, her eyes filled with a mix of guilt and frustration. "It's not like that, Michael. I was talking about how everyone feels pressure to get married, to settle down. I was just, I don't know, venting about life." "But why say that about me? About us?" I asked, my voice rising a little. "If you were just venting, you could have said anything else. Why did it have to be about settling for me?" Emma shook her head, tears starting to well up in her eyes. "I didn't mean it the way it sounded. I love you, Michael. I really do. I was just feeling stressed, and it came out wrong." I wanted to believe her, I really did. But something about the whole thing felt off, like there was more she wasn't telling me. "Emma, I need to know. Do you really feel like you settled for me? Like I was your last resort?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked down again, avoiding my eyes. The silence was deafening, and every second that passed felt like an eternity. Finally, she whispered, "I don't know." That hit me like a ton of bricks. "You don't know?" I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper. "What does that even mean?" "It means I don't know how I feel sometimes," she said, her voice trembling. "I love you, but sometimes I wonder if I made the right choice. Not because of you, but because of me. I'm scared I rushed into this too fast, and now I don't know how to fix it." I leaned back on the couch, trying to process everything. Part of me was angry, but another part just felt sad, like all the air had been sucked out of the room. "So what now?" I asked, barely able to get the words out. "What are we supposed to do with this?" Emma wiped her eyes, sniffling. "I don't know," she said again. "I didn't want to hurt you. I never meant for any of this to happen." We sat there in silence for what felt like forever. Neither of us knew what to say or where to go from here. The only thing I knew for sure was that our marriage was now on shaky ground, and I didn't know if we could fix it. After the conversation with Emma, everything felt like it was hanging by a thread. It was awkward, tense, and honestly exhausting. We didn't talk much the rest of that day. It was like we both needed space but were too afraid to actually say it. Every little thing felt heavy, like we were walking on eggshells around each other. The next morning, things were no better. We went through the usual motions. Breakfast, getting ready for the day, but it was like we were on autopilot. I couldn't stop thinking about what she said. "I don't know." Those 3 words just kept replaying in my head. It felt like a death sentence for our marriage, but at the same time, it left everything so open-ended. Like there was no real closure. Emma was unusually quiet too. Normally, she's the one who keeps the conversation going, but now it was like she was lost in her own thoughts. I caught her staring at her phone a lot, probably texting that same friend from before. I didn't have the energy to ask about it, though. I was too drained to even care at that point. By the afternoon, I couldn't take the silence anymore. I needed to get out of the house. I told Emma I was going for a walk, and she just nodded, not even looking up from her phone. That stung more than I expected. I walked around aimlessly for a while, trying to clear my head. But no matter how far I walked, I couldn't escape the storm inside me. When I got back, Emma was in the same spot on the couch, still glued to her phone. I don't know why, but seeing her like that made something snap inside me. I blurted out, "Emma, we need to figure this out. We can't keep pretending everything's fine." She looked up, startled. "I know," she said quietly. "I just don't know where to start." "Start by being honest with me," I said, my voice more forceful than I intended. "Do you even want to be in this marriage? Because right now it feels like you're already checked out." She bit her lip, clearly struggling with what to say. "Michael, I don't want to hurt you, but I feel so confused. I thought getting married would make things clearer, but it's only made me realize how unsure I am." That was like another punch to the gut. "So what are you saying? You want out?" "I don't know," she repeated, and I felt like I was going in circles. "I just need time to figure out what I really want." Time. That's always the go-to, isn't it? But time wasn't what I needed. I needed answers. I needed to know if we had a future or if I was just wasting my time holding on to something that was already dead. "Emma, time isn't going to fix this," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "We're either in this together or we're not. Sitting around waiting isn't going to magically make things better." She looked away, her eyes filling with tears. "I don't know what you want me to say, Michael. I'm scared. I don't want to make the wrong decision." I sighed, running a hand through my hair. "And what about me? Do you think this is easy for me? I'm sitting here questioning everything about our relationship, wondering if you ever really loved me, or if I was just the guy you settled for because you didn't want to be alone." Her head snapped back to me. "That's not fair. I do love you, Michael. I'm scared I rushed into this." "Then why didn't you say something before we got married?" I asked, feeling the frustration boil over. "You had every chance to call it off if you weren't sure." "Because I thought I could make it work," she admitted. "I didn't want to disappoint you. I didn't want to be alone." There it was. The truth I had been dreading but half expected. She stayed with me out of fear, not love, and now we were both paying the price for it. We sat in silence for a long time after that, both of us lost in our own thoughts. I didn't know what to say anymore. What do you even say to someone who's basically told you they're not sure if they want to be with you? Eventually, Emma spoke up. "Maybe we need some space, just for a little while, to think things through." "Space," I repeated, almost laughing at the irony. "We've been living in the same house, but we've already been worlds apart for days now. What difference would more space make?" She didn't have an answer for that, and honestly, neither did I. We were stuck in this weird limbo, and it was tearing us both apart. That night, we slept in the same bed, but it felt like we were miles away from each other. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, wondering how we got to this point, wondering if there was any way to fix it, or if this was the beginning of the end. I couldn't shake the feeling that no matter what we decided, things would never be the same again. After everything that had happened, I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't stay stuck in this limbo forever. Emma's indecision, her "I don't know" about our marriage, was like a slow poison. It was eating away at me, and if I didn't do something soon, it was going to destroy me. I needed to take control of my own life, even if that meant walking away from the person I thought I'd spend forever with. The next morning, I woke up feeling more determined than I had in days. Emma was still asleep, curled up on her side of the bed, looking peaceful, like none of this was weighing on her as much as it was on me. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe she had already mentally checked out, and I was the one left holding on to something that wasn't there anymore. I got up quietly and went to the living room. Sitting there, I started thinking about what my life would look like without Emma. It was scary, sure, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized I'd been living in fear long enough. Fear of losing her, fear of being alone, fear of starting over. But maybe, just maybe, being alone was better than being someone's last resort. I spent the day gathering my thoughts, figuring out what I wanted to say to her. I wasn't going to let this drag on any longer. It was time for us to have a real conversation, one that wasn't filled with half-truths and I don't knows. That evening after dinner, I sat her down. "Emma, we need to talk," I said, trying to keep my voice calm but firm. She looked at me, her face serious. "Okay." I took a deep breath. I'd been doing a lot of thinking, about us, about everything that's happened. And I can't keep living like this. I need to know if we're going to fix this, or if it's time to move on. Emma looked down, fiddling with the edge of her sweater. I've been thinking too, she said softly. And I don't think I can give you the answer you're looking for. I nodded, expecting that response, but still feeling the sting of it. Then I think it's best if we go our separate ways, I said, my voice shaking slightly. I love you, Emma, but I can't be in a marriage where I'm not someone's first choice. I deserve more than that. She started to cry, and for a moment I felt like a jerk. But I knew this was the right decision. Staying together out of fear or guilt wasn't fair to either of us. I never wanted to hurt you, she whispered through her tears. I know, I said, and I don't want to hurt you either. But sometimes the best thing we can do is let go. We sat there in silence for a while, both of us trying to process what was happening. It felt surreal, like I was watching someone else's life fall apart. But it was my life, and I had to own it. The next few days were rough. We started the process of separating, figuring out who would keep what, and how we were going to handle the logistics of splitting up. It was awkward and painful, but also necessary. Every step we took felt like another weight being lifted off my shoulders, even though it hurt like hell. One night, as I was packing up some of my things, Emma came into the room. Michael, she said quietly, I hope you find someone who makes you happy. Someone who can be everything you need. I looked at her, my chest tightening. I hope you find that too, I said. And that was it. There were no dramatic goodbyes, no long speeches, just two people realizing that sometimes love isn't enough, and it's okay to let go. After Emma moved out, I started focusing on myself. I reconnected with friends I hadn't seen in a while, threw myself into work, and started figuring out who I was outside of my marriage. It wasn't easy, and there were days when I missed her so much it physically hurt. But I knew I was doing the right thing. One night, a few weeks after Emma left, I was sitting on my couch, scrolling through my phone, when I stumbled across an old photo of us. We looked so happy, so in love. For a moment, I felt a pang of regret, wondering if there was something more I could have done to save us. But then I remembered everything we'd been through, all the pain and confusion, and I realized that sometimes the best thing you can do is let go. I'm not saying I have it all figured out now. I'm still healing, still figuring out what comes next. But for the first time in a long time, I feel hopeful. I know I deserve to be with someone who sees me as their first choice, someone who loves me without hesitation or doubt. And I'm willing to wait for that. Moving forward isn't easy, but it's necessary, and I'm ready to take that step. Update 1. So it's been about a month since Emma and I decided to split. It hasn't been easy, but I've been doing my best to move on. I focused on work, caught up with friends, and tried to find some normalcy in this mess. I thought I was making progress, you know? I was starting to feel like myself again. But then, life decided to throw another punch at me. One day I was hanging out with a buddy of mine. We were catching up, talking about random stuff, when he casually dropped a bomb. Hey, did you know Emma's dating someone? He asked, like it was no big deal. I nearly choked on my drink. Wait, what? Already? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Yeah, he said, looking a bit uncomfortable. I saw her at a coffee shop the other day. She was with this guy. They looked close. My heart sank. I mean, I knew we were over, but hearing she was already seeing someone else hit me harder than I expected, especially since we weren't even divorced yet. The paperwork was still being finalized, and here she was, moving on like it was nothing. I tried to play it cool, acting like it didn't bother me. Do you know who the guy is? I asked, trying to sound casual. He hesitated for a second. I think it's that guy she used to talk about before you two got married. You know, the one she had some history with. That's when it all clicked. The constant texting, the weird behavior, her being glued to her phone during those last few weeks. It wasn't just her being distant, it was him. She had been talking to this guy the whole time, even before we decided to split. I didn't say much after that. I just nodded and changed the subject, but inside I was fuming. I felt betrayed all over again. Not because she was dating someone, that was her choice, but because of the timing. It felt like our entire marriage was a joke to her, like she had one foot out the door long before we even said our goodbyes. Later that night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I replayed every moment of our last month together, every time she was on her phone, every time she brushed off my questions. It all made sense now. She wasn't just distant. She was checked out, already focused on someone else. The next morning, I decided to confront her. Not because I wanted to get back together or anything like that, but because I needed closure. I needed to hear it from her, to understand why she couldn't just be honest with me from the start. I sent her a message asking if we could talk. She agreed, and we met up later that day at a park. It was weird seeing her again, especially knowing what I knew now. She looked nervous, like she knew what was coming. Emma, I started, keeping my voice calm. I need to ask you something, and I want you to be honest with me. She nodded, not saying a word. I heard you've been seeing someone, I said, watching her reaction closely. Is it true? Her eyes widened for a second, and then she looked away. Yeah, she admitted quietly. I've been seeing someone. Is it the same guy you were talking to before we separated? I asked, already knowing the answer but needing to hear it from her. She hesitated, then nodded. Yes, it's him. I felt a mix of anger and sadness. So, you've been talking to him this whole time? I asked, even when we were still trying to figure things out? She looked down, guilt written all over her face. I didn't plan for it to happen like this, she said. We started talking again and it felt right. Right? I repeated, my voice rising a bit. Emma, we were still married. We were supposed to be working on us, and you were already moving on with someone else. I know, she said, her voice shaking. I'm sorry, Michael. I didn't mean to hurt you. Hearing her apologize didn't make me feel any better. In fact, it just made me angrier. If you were talking to him the whole time, why didn't you just tell me? Why drag this out? I didn't know how to, she admitted. I was scared. I didn't want to hurt you more than I already had. Well, congratulations, I said bitterly. You managed to do that anyway. We sat there in silence for a while, neither of us knowing what to say. I wanted to scream, to yell at her for being so selfish, but I knew it wouldn't change anything. The damage was done, and there was no going back. Finally, I stood up. I hope he's worth it, I said, my voice cold. I hope you're happy with him. Michael, she started, but I cut her off. I don't want to hear it, I said. Just finish the divorce papers and let's be done with this. I walked away, feeling a strange mix of relief and sadness. I was finally done with Emma, but the pain of betrayal was still fresh. It would take time to heal, but at least now I knew the truth. Moving forward wasn't going to be easy, but at least now I could do it without looking back. Update 2. It's been a few weeks since I confronted Emma about seeing that guy, and honestly I thought I was done with all the drama. The divorce papers were still in process, but I'd been keeping my distance from her and focusing on rebuilding my life. Things were slowly getting better. I was starting to feel more like myself, even if the whole situation still left a bad taste in my mouth. Then, one evening, I got a message from Emma. Just seeing her name pop up on my phone made my stomach twist. I almost didn't open it, but curiosity got the better of me. The message was short and vague. Can we talk? It's important. I rolled my eyes thinking, what now? Part of me wanted to ignore her, but another part was curious. What could she possibly want after everything? Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet her the next day. When we met at a coffee shop, Emma looked like a wreck. Her eyes were red and puffy, like she'd been crying for days. She was fidgeting, barely able to look me in the eye. I didn't feel sympathy, though. All I could think about was how much she had hurt me and how I wasn't going to let her back into my life. Michael, she started, her voice shaky. I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but I need to tell you something. I folded my arms, leaning back in my chair. What is it, Emma? She took a deep breath, tears already welling up in her eyes. The guy I was seeing, he was cheating on me. He was seeing another girl the whole time we were together. I blinked, not expecting that. I didn't say anything, just let her keep talking. I found out a few days ago, she continued, her voice breaking. I confronted him, and he admitted it. He didn't even try to deny it. I feel so stupid, Michael. I left you, and for what? For someone who didn't even care about me. She started crying, covering her face with her hands. I sat there feeling a strange mix of satisfaction and indifference. This was karma, plain and simple. She'd betrayed me for a guy who turned out to be a player, and now she was reaping what she'd sown. I'm so sorry, she sobbed. I made such a huge mistake. I thought I wanted something else, but I see now how wrong I was. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I had to tell you. I waited a moment, letting her cry. Then I said, Emma, I appreciate you telling me the truth, but it doesn't change anything. She looked up, her eyes pleading. Michael, I know I messed up, but can't we at least try to fix things? I still love you. I realize now that you were the best thing that ever happened to me. I shook my head. Emma, you didn't love me. You loved the idea of not being alone. And when things got tough, you ran to someone else. I can't be with someone who only comes back when things don't work out with someone else. She reached across the table, trying to grab my hand, but I pulled away. Please, Michael, she whispered. Give me another chance. I'll do anything to make it right. I stood up, my voice firm. Emma, it's too late. I've moved on, and you need to do the same. I deserve someone who chooses me first, not someone who settles or comes crawling back when things go wrong. Her face crumpled, and she started crying again, but I didn't feel sorry for her. This was her mess, not mine. I'm sorry, Emma, I said, softer this time. But we're done. I walked out of the coffee shop, leaving her there in tears. It felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. For the first time in months, I felt free. Emma's betrayal had been a painful chapter in my life, but now it was finally closed. Karma had done its job, and I was ready to move forward for real.